Hey gang, so today is not a review video, or at least it's kind of a review video, I guess, but it's different because it's a tour of my little office studio. I had a comment recently on one of my videos where somebody said, hey, it'd be great if we could see your gear and what you do to kind of record and stuff. So I thought, yeah, man, like I've been doing so many of these fidget review videos that it'd be kind of cool to take a little break, at least one. So if you're not interested in gear, you're not interested in this stuff, skip it. Come back on like Tuesday, there'll be another one, trust me. But if you're at all interested, maybe you're gonna get into reviews or something, who knows? But I'm just gonna give you a little tour of my stuff. So this is a tour of the Fidget Fix studio, I guess. Okay, so this is kind of like the main hub of where I do my reviews. This is, I've got my desk. This is basically my entire computer desk here. This is also when I work from home. So, all my stuff, editing, we'll get to that in a minute. But this is kind of like the main space that I work from. And so what I have is just kind of an extension to my desk. Under here, I have a little kind of rollout of where I keep all of my, kind of like tools and things I might need if I'm doing reviews or if I'm just working on fidgets in general. And then if I'm sitting, what's nice about this is I can just roll it out and I just kind of put it to the side and then I can just kind of sit here and, it doesn't get in the way. So what I have is a Sony ZV-10 or ZV-E10, sorry, right up here. And this thing is great because it's small and it lets me move it around. It's pretty light. It's got a little screen on it, but I don't use the screen. What I do is I transmit wirelessly to my iPad. Now, right now you can't really see anything because there's no lights on. So in this cage, I have a ton of lights, and these two lights are specifically for the reviews themselves. So if I turn these on, you'll see what happens on the screen. I'll turn this one on. So I end up with enough light down here once it's properly lit. And then anything I do, I can just kind of see what I'm doing here on the screen. And then if I want to kind of like a close-up, I can hold it up here. But typically I don't. I shoot with this camera in 4K. So then I just, anytime you guys see close-ups, I'm just cutting, like I'm scaling up the footage so that it's the full 4K because I only ever post in HD. So this also, on this mat, I have kind of what's a safe zone here. And I've put down, this is weather stripping, which I'll show you over here. It's just basically a roll of like it's called joint sponge. And I just roll it out and I tape it when I need it. And what this lets me do is if I'm working on stuff and I have balls and springs that roll around, they tend to get trapped in here, which is great. The other thing is this gives me a good sense of when I'm zoomed in. So if I zoom out, you can see on the screen, I never zoom out past this point. So this lets me know. Let's see if I zoom in a little bit here. This just kind of gives me a safe area. So I know that I'm good within this spot. So you can see here, my fingers on the corner here, and it's just barely in the corner of the screen. So it's just one of those things when you're shooting, where am I? Yeah, here. It's just one of those things when you're shooting something that I don't really want to worry about which areas are safe, where can I just kind of focus? Because you can see a lot of times, like off to the side, I have all my tools, scale, little, I forget what these are called, caliper, digital caliper. And then I just have like kind of a big loop if I need to see some detail stuff. And so it just gives me space to put things, but this is really my main focus. And of course, depending on how I light it, this can be very, very dark. Usually I also have, I'm not gonna turn them on now, but I have these side lights, and what's nice is they're magnetic. So these are all just, it's a mix of newer lights, very, very bright, different colors. And then I have kind of these Temu lights as well. So I just sort of double up. And then I also have these really big LED panel lights. And so if I'm recording, I'll turn them on, but it's pretty bright to do it in here. I just didn't want to have them on right now, but I'll just put one on just to show you. Like it really brightens things up. I have them both on when I'm doing, usually when I'm doing these, the reviews, but also my intros. These are my main, this light and this light are the only two lights I keep on for my intros that are facing me. I usually move these little lights, I turn them into orange and blue lights, and I have them pointing against that wall. And that's what gives me these kind of like the different lighting in the background. I also take these images or these pictures down so that they don't kind of get in the way. So it just kind of gives me a clean background. So what I also have here, when I'm reviewing, I have my main shotgun microphone up here. And then I also have a second Sennheiser down here. And this is for the fidget sound. So if I'm, if I'm going for that special sound, then I'll make sure that I'm kind of moving around down here, while this mic, the Sennheiser mic up here, is also catching my voice. And they're two very different mics. This is the, again, for any kind of like audio nerds, the E814, and this is the MKE600. So they're both pretty, I mean, they're not cheap mics, but they're not like insanely expensive, but it does make a difference once you get like good sound going. I'm not recording on either of these today. I have a wired lav on. I don't know why I just touched that, but I did. So that's kind of like the main setup. Now, what I do like about this, and this is gonna be kind of tricky to show you because I'm holding the stick in one hand, but let me see if I can kind of cut to something else here. Okay, so when I'm recording the review, like I said, this camera is pointing straight down. But then when I record my intros, I have to have the camera in a different place. So what I do is I have this camera set up so that I have the same mount on both the cage up here, so I can pop it onto that mount, and then I have another plate underneath the camera so that I just turn it around, and then I pop it on here. Now, the other thing is, so watch, actually, here, we see in the monitor, right there. If I turn just one of these lights on, but this is not the lens I use. So I use a completely different lens. Hey, I use a completely different lens for this camera when I'm doing my intros. For that part, I go with this guy. So I pop this on. This is a fixed 16mm 1.4 Sigma lens. So I switch out this lens and I pop this guy on, and that gives me that really nice kind of clean, wide look that I have in my intro. So when I'm doing the intro, not only am I switching the camera, I'm also switching the lens. So let's have a look at what happens after. So after I finish the recording, I then pop everything into, here, let's lower this a little bit. Probably should have that better prepared. Everything comes into the computer, and at this point, this is where my edit starts. Now, when I'm doing the edits, I break everything down into sections. So I have my intro, these are like my little turntable shots. These are all the edits, all the little cuts that go into these edits. I like to do these little kind of jumps from like a medium shot. Two little fidgets. So you can see that here, that's just kind of like, I'm just cutting and scaling a shot up on this shot. And then I go into my intro, and actually every time I do this intro, I have to go into my graphics set here. And in here, and I know this looks kind of crazy, this is the graphic system I use to build the intro piece. So I use what's called Fusion. So it's kind of a mix. So I use Fusion and I use After Effects. So After Effects I use to kind of create the background image. Here. So this whole clip was done in After Effects, and I rendered that out, and I kind of built I added in enough of the kind of like the fidget name, the fidget companies and stuff that we all sort of know online. I thought that'd be kind of fun since that's what the channel's about. And then once I rendered that out in After Effects, I brought that in here, and then all these little bits and pieces actually are what I use to kind of update the names. So let's say I get to the end, and in this case, this was orbits, but let's say it's something else. So I would take my first node here and I would just say, I mean, anything. We love Fidget Boy. So I'd have my first node is my title, and then the second node down here would be the maker. And so there's just a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm also a motion graphics person by trade, so I kind of, you know, sometimes take this stuff a little too far, I guess. But even things like, you know, like the little lens flare, that's in here. That's something that I added. Just like a little accent coming across. Same with all like the way the text flies in and stuff. And sometimes if the names are too big, I end up having to kind of change their positions just so that when they fly in, they, you know, maybe everything, they fit better. So that's a whole thing I'm doing in here. And of course, here's all just like my little animation curves and stuff. So then I come out and I start to cut the actual review. And you can see, you know, I always have to add in my like and subscribe. But I usually have a lot of sections in here. And then what I do is I have all of my, or sorry, I have a lot of edits. So like I kind of cut things in and out if something's taking too long. And then I also have each section is this, I have this little graphic piece, which again, this is done the same way I did the intro. So I change up all the names and stuff. I bring this track on top. This is like my little playability section. Now here's the part that takes the most time. I cut in that fidget sound mic. The attraction. So when you're hearing the sound, when you're actually hearing the fidget sounds, that's because I've gone through and I cut in. See, like this gray part means nothing was really happening with the fidget mic, with the sound. But here is when I make a really big kind of like noise, I guess. So I literally go through the entire review and I look for parts when I'm editing, when I'm talking about the fidget and the sound. That's when I'm stopping and I'm cutting in to my fidget microphone. And I can't have them both up at the same time because what happens is the audio that I record on the fidget microphone is not clean. It's too far away, so it gets echoey. So it sounds really bad if they're both combined. So I have to go through and I edit out those sounds. So the sound section gets pretty annoying when I'm doing that. Playability, right? So now I get into sound. The other thing I'm doing is every time I hit a section, I have this little clipboard and I write down what section this is at, because that's what I use to make the index sections in the YouTube video. So in this case, I go, oh, this is sound, and sound starts at 338 over here. And so I go up here and I type 338, and then I just copy and paste this little clipboard into the YouTube video. And that's it. Then I just kind of go through, and this usually takes about an hour to kind of cut through everything with all these sections and to cut out the sound. The internals are always a nice little break because I'm not really cutting sound into those. And then I have my, just kind of like my usual outro video. Again, same thing here. If there's any sort of special reason I need to change the text on this, I just open it up and I have everything under one big block, and we can kind of see it over here. And this is where I can just kind of change the text if I want. So that's it. And then, you know, oh, I also record directly. I should mention that when I record something, I have these set up. I have my timeline. For anybody that's into this kind of stuff, I have my timelines set up so that those two microphones actually have their own tracks down here. So I set those up to automatically record. So whenever I'm recording my reviews or my intros, the audio comes directly in here. And then I take the footage from my camera, drop it in the timeline, and I just sync it up with the recorded audio. And that way I get very clean audio, but I also get my camera audio in case there's a problem. I would never use it because it's pretty awful, but it's there. And that's pretty much it. I also just, I have a big blackout curtain here so that when I'm recording, what's important is I close this curtain because I have a window. I have a very large window here. I can show you guys what's outside in the world. Oh, let me turn off this light because that's kind of offensive at this point for your eyes. So, I've got, now it is Canada, it is, December. So we've got snow and stuff, but just this is our street. But what I do is I have this huge blackout curtain, and when I'm actually recording, I can just pull this across like that. And what this does is two things. One, it blocks out all the outdoor light, which is good because you can't mix different colored lights when you're recording. It's really tricky if you do, especially if you're showing your face. You end up with like a purple face. But what it also does is because I'm speaking this way all the time, this curtain kind of acts as a bit of a sound wall for me. So it softens and it kills any of the echoes that are going to bounce against that glass. So this curtain was a really, really good thing. It wasn't that expensive either. And I just put up like a pressure pipe along there. And then that's it. This is just, the rest of this is just office. This is where I work all the time. I come home and I work a couple of days a week here and days in at the office. I work at the National Gallery, so I'm the videographer there. So it's like Canada's big art gallery. And they're, just kind of collecting my 80s toys. This is interesting. This is the bin of items that I know I'm going to sell. So once I review and I've had a while to sort of live with something and I know I'm going to sell it, I pop them in here. That way they don't kind of mix in with my other stuff. But here I'm going to open up this curtain again. So let's let some light in. And then in terms of the stuff I keep, see if I can do this one-handed without sending it flying everywhere. So this is kind of like the keeper stuff. And I just kind of keep these, different drawers of stuff. I don't like keeping a massive collection. I'm not one of those people that has like 100 fidgets at a time because I never know what to do with them. These are actually all new things I have to review. And I've got, I think like there's about 8 more coming in. So I wait till I have a big batch, then I record a whole bunch of intros. And then I kind of record the reviews over time. But the intros usually take one day because of all the setup and the lighting and everything. These are all fidgets that I've sold that are being shipped out. You know who you are with all of these. My own custom sign I had printed here in town. And that's it. That's kind of the space. Okay, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed this little tour of my space. Again, I know it's not for everybody. A lot of you are going, where the hell's the fidget review? Sorry, not this week, guys, but Tuesday. Sometimes it's nice to take a break, just a little change. Any questions? If you have any questions about gear or anything, let me know. And I will be reviewing again on probably a Tuesday. I tend to try to release Tuesdays and Fridays just to stay consistent. Hopefully this is giving you kind of an idea of what a setup might involve. This is not every setup. A lot of my friends who are reviewers have completely different setups and they are very successful on their own. This is just what I like. Oops, don't touch the mic. This is just what I like to do because this is also what I do for a living. So I am a camera person. I am a motion graphics person and editor. So there is kind of the desire to have, quality with what I do. And it bothers me if I don't sort of put that effort into it. So it's kind of a curse, I guess. But hopefully it shows. All right, gang. Thanks for watching.